Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Creators Outlet. Today, we're joined by our special guest, Karla Gadecki. Karla, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on, because otherwise I would have been just watching Fringe for like the 9th time tonight. So
I love that show. I did a whole binge of it back when I was still living in California with my husband. It's such a great show.
Oh, yeah. My friend whose house I was renting a few years back with my daughter when she was young, he was like, "You watch Fringe, right?" I go, "What's that?" He's like, "Come sit down." And I watched like the first 5 seasons in like 2 days.
Yeah. It's Walter is our favorite character. That's
there is no other perfect actor to play that part than him.
Absolutely.
And it's just weird when I see him in another role, and I'm like, why? What's wrong with Walter?
It's exactly how I feel. I'm like, where's Walter?
Because I've seen just about everybody else on the show in other roles over the years, but he is Walter.
He stole the show every time he was on camera.
He stole it in the pilot episode when they get him released from the mental asylum. And they're driving down the road and they hit a couple of bumps and he blurts something out, which I can't remember right now. And, Peter's like and goes, "Walter, what's the matter?" "I think I've just pissed myself." And I'm like, I love this show.
I love the show. Yeah, it's great. Well, I love that Peter always called him Walter too, because it just kind of set the tone for their relationship right off the bat.
Yeah. It was just and Leonard Nimoy's in there playing kind of a bad guy, and I'm like, okay, this is a legit sci-fi show because it's got somebody from Star Trek in it.
Yeah, exactly. So, he was a big get at the time when they got him. I remember it was like they had to court him, I think, to convince him.
Oh, quite a bit, I'm sure.
Yep.
I remember I got to meet him in Boston. Well, I didn't get to get an autograph or anything because his father had just passed away.
Oh.
But he was in town for the family, and of course his whole family's from Boston. And so he was in town anyway, so we agreed to, meet his agreement. But all he did was tell the entire crowd about his growing up in Boston. So it was like a Nimoy history lesson, and so it was just really cool being in the room and getting to hear, how certain things developed in his career and, family, and how his dad got him hooked on photography, and which of course led him into, filmmaking and everything else. So it was just a lot of fun. Okay, I'm done rambling. Let's talk about the Duplicant.
Well, just a sidebar to Nimoy, I think it's the game Civilization that he did the voiceovers for that my husband loves, of all the Civilization games.
Yeah, and up until he passed, he did all the voiceovers for himself on the on Cryptic's Star Trek Online game.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So you get to there was a big thing with him one year. It was like the 5th anniversary or something, and they put him in as the next generation version of himself.
Right.
So you had to go to Ambassador Spock, and there was like an interaction between, cutscenes between you and Leonard Nimoy. So I'm like, oh, this is great.
That's awesome.
So it's a lot of fun. So tell us how you got started. I know you have a quite a prestigious background. You've done just about everything up to this point. You've worked in Hollywood doing, screenwriting and all kinds of cool stuff that I dreamt of doing when I was young, and then just started buying a whole bunch of comic books, which has paid off in the long run. But
it has paid off in the long run. I started out in TV pretty young. I would say in high school, I got into the entertainment stuff. There was a media TV class that my high school teachers were running, and I was the first girl that went through all 3 years of the program. I actually still keep in touch with those teachers because they're just awesome human beings. And my whole journey in TV, I feel like, is what led me into doing comics. So, I went to NYU. I was lucky enough to get into there. And then I worked in TV and film on both coasts. I worked on set on movies like Michael Clayton and Duplicity, Rescue Me, a million different TV shows. And then I was trying to figure out a way to market myself for staff writing to make myself stand out from the crowd. And I had just at that point started going to comic conventions. It took a little convincing from one of my friends for me to go. And of course, the minute I went, I was like, I've been missing out on this my whole life. I don't know why I wasn't doing this from the time I was a child. And so I was just trying to immerse myself in that world. And one of those things I did was take a class at Meltdown Comics, which is where I met Ryland and Steve Prince and Jeff Leeds and all those guys who I sent all my scripts to that I write for my comic books so that I can make sure that they make sense, they track, they're not I don't need to throw them out and start over again. And yeah, I just fell in love with the medium. I was like, wow, because I focused on editing at first, and then I got into screenwriting. I would read every draft of everything as the script coordinator on all these shows. And I feel like just that immersion in that world is what helped me be able to even attempt to write such an intense medium as comics. It's a medium I wanted to go into with respect of how difficult it can be. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to do classes before even putting pen to paper.
Well, let me tell you, as a kid that grew up in the 70s and never saw a girl near a comic book rack, about 15 years ago, I walked into Boston Comic-Con, and I went with 2 or 3 friends, and I knew a couple of the dealers, so we got in for free. And we got in for free. We had to help him out, work in the booth for when he wanted to take breaks and go around and buy stuff for himself or whatever.
Right.
He would just page one of us, or he'd have a couple of the pretty girls that worked his booth go look for us because they knew we were in Artist Alley, hanging out, drooling over art or something. So they go, he's going to dinner. Okay, be right there.
With the accent. I love it with the accent.
But it was 100% worth it, because who wants to pay $40 or $50 to get into a comic book convention? That's why I never wanted to go to an amusement park. I never wanted to go to Disney. I go, why would I pay Disney $100 just so I could walk around? And now I don't walk around because I had medical issues in 2016. I ended up in a coma, and now I'm in a wheelchair. So, I'm just I'm gonna charge up my wheelchair to roll around Disney? I'm like, no.
Oh, well, we got it. Once those theme parks are back open again, then we got to hook up one of our Disney friends to get you a free pass, because that's a thing.
Yeah, but I don't go out. I don't go out much, and yeah, I'm not a big ride person. My stomach stays up here at the top of the hill of the roller coaster.
I'm the same.
And the rest of me goes down, and then something bad happens if I eat beforehand. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I'm the same.
A big scary ride for me is going on one of the water rides
Right. Yep.
Like
Exactly.
I'll do like Splash Mountain all day, or go on like the sky lift, like the ski lift.
Yep.
Where
Yep.
are you going? I'm going on the ski lift. Why are you going on the ski lift? I go, because it's right about my speed.
Yeah, or the little train that goes around.
Yeah. I'm just gonna sit like at the end of the train, and just relax, and I just want to chill out. I don't want to, I don't want to do anything too exciting. I don't think my doctor would approve it.
Uh-oh. Well, I mean, then that would be a reason to do it, to get him excited.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I'm fine with it, but any excuse to not put my life in danger, everybody's for. So
yeah, that's especially these days.
My daughter's a teenager now too, so that's a whole.
Oh, Godspeed. My sister has 3 kids, and 2 of them are teenagers, so I know what that's like.
I went from having such a sweet, loving daughter to, you're stupid. I'm like,
with the eye roll, right? She's got to like add the eye roll.
I don't even have to be looking. I can hear the eye roll. Because it's the same eye roll I gave my mother when I was her age.
Yep.
So I'm like, I go, look, haven't I suffered enough already? Do I have to keep getting hit with mom's curse? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, teenagers don't care about that stuff. They're just
they don't. I'm like, I go, well, if I'm alive for like the next 15 years or so, she should like come back around, because girls usually, make sure dad's okay, and boys usually make sure mom's okay.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. So, hopefully that'll all fall into play. So tell us how Duplicant came about.
So Duplicant was originally a pilot script, and there was this one scene that I was thinking about adapting into just a single issue comic book at the time. So the character of Pamela was originally just supposed to be in one scene, and that was it in the script. And so when I started to adapt that into a comic book, I quickly realized that her character needed much more story space than just a one-off issue to do it justice. And then as I was falling in love with writing this medium and being involved in this medium, I was like, well, in this world, my only obstacle is money, which is still a big obstacle, but it's a lower bar than the obstacles that I was facing in getting any traction in film and TV. And so I said, let me see what I can do and see how I can make this happen. And so I took these 2 writing classes at Meltdown and developed the whole thing into an actual comic book series. The first issue was workshopped a lot at the store, and then Vince Hernandez, who was my editor on the first issue, helped me out even more to refine it and polish it. And then it was just a hunt for an artist. I actually had a different artist before Mariana. He was based in the US, but he didn't want to listen to any of my notes, which didn't work out very well. Like, I remember we had approved a test page, like we were still at the test page, and we finally got it hammered out, and then he decided he didn't like what I had approved, threw it out, and completely redrew it. And I was like, but like, I don't like the new version you did. Like, what is happening?
I liked what we worked out.
Yeah.
This isn't your book.
Yeah,
and you're not Jack Kirby. So
well, that was just it. I was just like, I respect artists. I come from a family of artists. My dad's a graphic designer. My great uncle is Rudy Nappy, who did all the covers for Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys. My mom is an artist. Like,
I still have some of those covers.
Yeah, so I have nothing but respect for artists. But I was just like, at the time, I hadn't really found my confidence and my voice yet. And I remember my teacher, Jim Higgins, was like, you need to stand up to him. Like, he's screwing you over. He's not treating you right. He's taking advantage of the fact that you're a woman, and he's trying to walk all over you. He's like, you need to speak up. And when I did, he was just like, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. And so then I was back to square one trying to find a new artist, and Ryland helped me out with finding Mariana, who's been with the book ever since and is amazing. I mean, her facial work is what sells the story. If I hadn't found her, the book wouldn't exist.
And you were successful putting it out through Kickstarter, and then you caught the eye of Second Sight.
Actually, the first issue I self-funded. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and so that's how I had the money to pay for the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gotten a publisher pretty quickly early on, but that ended up not working out. But that was one of the reasons there was a big lag between the first and the second issue. So once I got the rights back, then the second issue, by that point, I had just given birth to my son, and we were in the process of moving because we couldn't afford to stay where we were in California anymore. So we ended up taking out a personal loan to fund issue 2. And that wasn't something I could continue to justify, having a kid that I needed to take care of, to keep taking personal loans out. So that's what made me finally turn to Kickstarter and go that route to being able to fund the books.
Well, there's been a huge independent comic explosion last year, the year before, and continuing into this year, where people are sick of what the supposed big two, Marvel and DC, are pumping out, and they're just regurgitating the same stuff. I'm sure Rylan will tell you there's really only 18 stories in superhero comics, and that's it. We just change the names to protect the innocent and right. keep moving on.
Right. Change their outfits, maybe give them a different hairdo.
Yeah, and you change this, you flip the scripts around here and there, but eventually it's pretty much the same story told over and over, especially when they do, big events. There's been certain big events in both Marvel and DC that have actually stood out and were actually good.
Right.
But for the most part, most of the yearly events are kind of like, and they'll start off really good and boisterous, and by the end of the second issue,
that's not good.
So
That's not good.
I mean, DC's 2 best events have been Crisis on Infinite Earths from George Perez,
mm-hmm.
back in the 80s. And of course, he was thrilled because he literally got to draw every single character that DC ever created in those 12 issues at some point.
Which is fabulous to be able to do that.
Yeah.
That's probably like a little boy's dream come true.
Yeah, and he got to, he got to draw the death of a couple of major characters, like Barry Allen, the Flash, died.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, nobody ever dies for good in comics. That's why.
No, they never do. They always miraculously come back.
Marvel's had some great stories over the years as well, but people are tired of the same thing. And now when Marvel launches Marvel likes to just keep regurgitating and kicking back off at issue 1 all over again.
Right.
So now apparently all the big name writers and artists that work for Marvel and DC are so important that every time they switch or pick up another title, they have to start everything back over at number 1 again. The corporations do this because number 1s outsell any other numbers in a run.
Right.
And it also gives them an excuse to make the first issue bigger, which usually consists of them just putting reprint material in the back.
Oh, God.
And
of course.
And charging anywhere from $12 to $24.99 for the first issue, depending. It's we're gonna make this prestige square bound extra glossy stock and
extra fancy paper.
I'm like, I already own all this stuff. I don't need to reread this story from when when I still had here and it was red. You know, I don't need that.
Well, apparently they think you do.
Yeah. But, you know, nowadays, you know, this is what makes me feel like an old guy. This is why last night I was on one of my other podcasts called Okay Boomer, the podcast, where we just talk about old books where stuff used to be like 20 and 35 and 50 cents.
Oh, yeah.
For a book. You know, it was only 4-color and it was on newsprint, but
right.
Hey, I was fine with that. And, you know, I know you use better materials. There's you know, high technique printing processes now, and you know, it can look fantastic on the pages. And I've got some books that it does look, you know, it's worth it to have that book. But a lot of people have come to find that they would rather invest in creators themselves on platforms like Indiegogo and Kickstarter,
right,
and get it, you know, direct from the talent. And that way they're not, you know, if somebody falls in love with the Duplicant, as I'm sure they will, because I got about 3/4 of the way through the first book, so it was like 60 pages.
Oh yeah, well the first book is the first 2 issues combined.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then the second one is just the 3rd issue.
Oh, so I actually read the first issue. It started on the second. And I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect it to go this direction.
Oh, but, that's good. It's always good when you know what's coming.
Well, when you can surprise an old guy like me, it's been a good day.
Yay.
Sometimes I'll have to sit for an hour and try to remember where I know the story from, but it usually comes across. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that, you know, it went like in a whole different twist. So it's people discovering new original ideas, because most of the ideas coming out of Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, most publishers don't want to touch. They're a lot of the publishers are working a formula.
Right.
And that's all they wanted. Well, this is working right now.
Right.
Yeah, but we don't want to take a chance to see if it'll work better. So, yeah. you know, that's what it is. And, you know, I like the everything that small press has got going on right now. Second Sight, Scout, and Fall, and, you know, all the companies like that have got like great stuff. But I find in the indie community coming out of the crowdfunding,
right,
those people are telling the stories they want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and it seems like even the small press companies, they're not writing pseudo comic book stories. They're taking their scripts and they're adapting them to books and praying for Amazon or Netflix or whoever to want to pick it up to make a, you know, an animated series out of it, a movie, TV show, anything. And I'm like, just make comics. If it's a good story and they like it, don't worry, they'll pick it up, because Hollywood has no new ideas, and they want new intellectual properties, and the easiest way to get your intellectual property out there since the MCU exploded is a comic book.
Yeah.
You've basically got kind of like storyboarded pages, only with much more complete, you know, completist art, and it's almost like, you know, holding up the old 9mm and looking up to the light, and
yeah, exactly.
You know, going like that, and it's just a great way to go to to get stuff out there.
You have total control over what you're doing in comics. At least when you're an independent creator, you don't have to answer to anyone but yourself.
Yeah, you get rid of the gatekeepers, and you put it out there, and like you say you run your scripts by Ryland in the cruise, and you're like, does this even sound good?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, is this crap? Did I just totally mess it all up?
And there's an artist that I know from some of my friends' podcasts, and he is, he's got his own production company and everything, and he's an amazing artist, but he's one of those artists that think everything he does is garbage.
Right.
And I've seen some of his stuff, and I'm like, I'm amazed this guy hasn't been picked up to just be like one of those cover artists like, Art Germ or Clayton Crane that we're just going to do like a pinup and put that on the cover. Okay, here's your 40 grand. Okay, thank you.
Right.
And I think it's more like 30, but either way. But he think he'll come on one of the podcasts that we'll do and be like, yeah, here's something new I'm working on. It's garbage.
Wow.
I'm like, just send me your garbage.
I love your garbage. Send it to me.
Because I will reopen my SD store tomorrow and post all this stuff up and have it sold. He goes, well, if you can sell my stuff. I go, I can sell your stuff. I go, standard 10%, but I can sell your stuff. So how did everything come together with Second Sight?
So I had just run my first campaign, and I was starting to look for a publisher, and I saw this article in Bleeding Cool about how Second Sight was open for submissions, and so it was like a Sunday afternoon, and I was just like, all right, let's, 15 minutes later, ring, ring. It was Spike calling me to be like, yeah, we want to get your book, like, right now. Which was awesome. And then I talked to Bradley and Marcus that day. Like, they were like, we want this book. We want to sign you. We love this book. And that was awesome because I've never had that before. So that was pretty cool to have that level of enthusiasm.
Well, that is for sure exciting because I know I've seen multiple posts from Ross Ritchie go up and explain to people that he can't look at any of your submissions because they're not accepting submissions.
Right.
So he can't even look at it. And he goes, I feel bad because some of the stuff, look how beautiful this is.
Right.
Somebody put it, it's a ring binder, and inside the ring binder is just, it's supposedly, according to the note that was on the outside, includes art, the script, conception stuff, and a whole bunch of other things, and it's bound and it's got gold leaf all over the outside, decorated and shrunk wrapped.
Right.
And he's like, if a publisher is accepting open submissions,
mm-hmm.
or submissions for a certain book, then in that window you could submit. Until then, this is what I have to do. He goes, but hey, I'm conscious, so I'm recycling them, and he put them in the recycle bins. He goes, but he dumped a stack like this big.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
He goes, I legally can't look at them because if I look at them and one of our creative teams makes something even similarly, even like, 3 feet away from what your whole project idea was, then, we're open for libel. And I get sued on a weekly basis already. So this is why.
That's the way it is in film and TV. If you haven't been requested, it's like everything, they don't even look at it. They'll send you a letter to be like, we got it and we had to throw it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to make sure that, a company is actually taking submissions.
Yeah.
The problem is 9 out of 10 times it's art submissions, and you lucked out with that 1 out of 100 times of, yeah, we're looking for a writer. Okay, well, here's my story. Do you like it?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
like,
definitely great. And,
we're going to overnight the contract to you for tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And at San Diego Comic-Con, the portfolio review is typically just for artists. But the last time that I went, which was the last time that they had it before everything went crazy, Friction, which is a literary anthology, was doing portfolio review of writers. And so I met with them, and I'm actually working with them on a 13-page short standalone comic that will go in one of their anthologies this coming year, later, I think like December-ish, which the script is done. We just have to land on an artist and get that process going.
Yeah, anthologies have been pretty good this year too. There's been lots of horror anthologies, and
I was in one.
Which one were you in?
I was in Nightmare Theater by Clay Adams and David Schrader.
Oh yeah. I had Clay on, yeah.
Yeah. Clay actually builds all my Kickstarter pages for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's awesome. He held my hand through the whole process on the first Kickstarter. I was like, what do I do? How do I do this? He was great. He's been such a huge support system for me.
Yeah, Clay and David were on, and we went through it, and we had a grand old time. And then one of the stories in there was done by another friend of mine, Christy Shin.
Oh yeah, Christy. Yeah, I've been on her show.
Yeah, I always know it's lunchtime in California when she comes on
Right.
and does her live daily draws at like 4 o'clock my time. I go, oops, almost time for dinner. I got to get prepped up for tonight's show. Who's on?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do her show during my campaign. I just got to figure out the timing with having my husband watch the little guy.
Yeah, that's always. I remember having to do that when I had gotten custody of my daughter years ago. So I was raising her when she was little, and then my mother would watch her during the day while I worked my day job, and then she would just sleep. My mother would stay at my house, and on nights I worked like a few nights a week at nightclubs DJing. So
there you go.
She would sleep over, or the baby would just stay at her house.
Right.
And
that's great. You have that support system.
And then in 2012, my mom passed.
Oh gosh.
And then a good friend of mine said, he goes, my sister babysits now that she's retired.
Right.
She just takes care of a couple of kids, and then a couple of kids just turned into just my daughter.
Oh, there you go.
So that lasted up until the time I ended up in the coma, and waking up a month or so later. And
oh wow, that must have been incredibly frightening.
So yeah, so like, do you know what month it is? I'm like, February. He goes, well, when you came in, it was February.
Right.
It is now April 29th. I go,
oh gosh, that's 2 months.
But there's a blizzard outside. He goes, yeah, we know. He goes, none of the staff has been home in 2 days. I'm like, oh. But yeah, so I had the support system, which I more than appreciated, and once my daughter started in preschool, because I lived in a town where I was living and working in a town during the day where pretty much my mother's entire side of the family lived.
Okay.
And you need one of the NASA computers to count my cousins, because
great.
We're like rabbits, apparently, but
Right.
but one of my aunts, actually a cousin, my mother used to make me call all my cousins that were her cousins and much older than me would automatically graduate to being aunt and uncle. So
okay, interesting. Got it.
So so she used to pick up my daughter from preschool, along with already having two of her grandkids there, and they wouldn't buy anything from the McDonald's, but they would go to the McDonald's and sit there and get free coffee refills. They would keep the cups from like the day before. So the adults would get free coffee, and then they would just send the kids to play like in the ball pit or whatever.
Send them to play. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, well, you've got this free thing, and we're just here. And they would always go into the time where none of the help could actually keep track.
Right.
Because they were like, drive-throughs wrapped around the building twice, and there's like 50 people. There's like 50 kids inside at the counter, so they can't tell. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're losing money on coffee.
And the whole idea of that was hopefully to get the kids to exercise enough that they would go home. That they would go home and fall asleep. I learned the hard way that never works. That just gives them more energy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, my son's most favorite time to run around and have a ton of energy is always at bedtime. He runs around and just runs on the beds, off the beds, around the room, jumping, screaming, dancing. That's when he has his most energy.
You have a cat.
Yeah, pretty much. She's like a cat, yeah.
I'll nap all day, and then when it's time to go to sleep, I'm going to run around like the wild man of Borneo.
Oh, well, it's not that he's not doing that during the day. He just ups it another level at bedtime. So like a level where we're like, what? Did we just give him sugar and we don't remember it? Like what just happened?
He popped open his underdog ring and took the super energy pill.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and my 50-year-old references. So let me just pull this up because this is in previews. Doink. So issue 1 of 3 is in previews.
1 of 5. They still have to fix that.
Oh, that's the number you were talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's 5 issues.
It's 5 issues for the first arc. Yep.
So yeah, that's a much bigger project than I was thinking about then.
Yeah. They're supposed to fix it. I don't know when they're going to fix it, but they'll fix it eventually.
So, see, I'm gonna do a copy, cut, and paste to the chat so people can remember. Because if I put it in the show notes, it'll be like, the second they're done with it, they'll forget about it.
Right.
There we go. That's for duplicate number 1, everybody. And the code is Feb 211508. And of course, all the creator credits in there. And yeah, so it slipped my mind because I keep hearing beeps from the other room because I bought a brand new tablet so I could relax,
right?
Because of the problems with my legs. So I can sit back in my recliner, with a nice new big tablet and read your book and 37 other books I have to read this week for various shows and news things that I'm putting together. The editor that said this is not one book, this is many books. I've heard this story many times before. A friend of mine, Chuck Pinot, is an editor. He's an editor, writer. His wife is also an editor and writer. And he was the editor on one of the first Kickstarter books I bought at the beginning of last year when I first started doing this.
Okay.
I pretty much went bankrupt. I'm on disability. I'm
Right.
disabled, so I'm on SSI, so I have very limited funds, and I kept forgetting that I was buying stuff because I checked my account and I thought I spent that, but it's still here, so I can buy more comics. And,
Yep.
And then I started getting bing, 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 bang, all these nasty.
Yeah, once they close and they start charging.
Yeah, all these nasty reminders, and I'm like, oh my God.
What have I done?
So I have a PCA that helps me, does the shopping and stuff for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I've been friends with him for like 4 years now. And if I run short, he goes, if you need like extra money for something, just let me know, and I can just get it when your check comes in the first. I'm like, okay. He goes, what do you need? I go, I need $213. He's like, what? For what? Oh, those podcasts I'm doing? He goes, yeah. And I'm interviewing comic book creators? Yeah. And then during the interview, I fall in love with their projects. Yeah. I go on Kickstarter and I buy them, and I forget that I bought them, and then I spent the money.
You need to go on that, I think it's like Buy Me a Coffee site to help fund your Kickstarter habit.
Well, I had an idea at the very beginning before I got the camera and started doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed Graham Nolan for his last book that he soloed, The Chenoo.
Yep.
And I had actually met him at Rhode Island Comic-Con November 2019. So I was already, pre-talking about this. And it was just weird because he goes, when you start talking to everybody like this, you're going to want to buy stuff from everybody. And I just look, I tilt my head like a stupid dog.
You're like, I will?
Huh? And he goes, oh, trust me, because when I'm not sitting behind the table and I get to walk around, I will easily, you will easily, as a creator, if you take a break from your table at San Diego and walk around, you will easily spend about $1,000 in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's really hard to go in with a budget and not blow it in like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's like fans walking into a show like that can't bring their credit cards with them. They have to bring cash only and be prepared, because now you're that sucker at the carnival.
Yep.
Because there's pretty much nothing under that roof that you don't want before you walk in the door.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that, an 8-ounce bottle of Coke is like $37.50. So.
Oh, then it's gone down in price.
Oh, it has. Well, I've actually never been to California.
It's a great convention, but San Diego's gotten so crowded. I was actually, before the pandemic happened, I was contemplating just doing WonderCon last year instead of San Diego, because it's a little bit cheaper too to go to Anaheim than San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego has just gotten so expensive. Like even some of the dealers that have been there since like the very beginning have like dropped out. He goes, their table prices are like so exorbitant. I can't afford to go.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've been hearing that a lot, actually. Or it's just impossible to get a table. I know a lot of creators that just had a hard time. Like they missed out on one whole year of conventions at San Diego because they just couldn't get a table.
New York like jacked their rates on the tables a couple of years ago too.
That doesn't surprise me.
You know, it's New York. What do you expect?
Pretty much.
You know, come to Boston.
The last convention I went to before everything shut down was the one in Baltimore, and that one was great.
What's the Baltimore show?
That's the one where they do the Ringo Awards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so, and that was like the first convention I had been to since San Diego in the summer, so that was pretty awesome. And that was the one where Ryland got his Ringo Award.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure that's Ryland's favorite convention.
Yeah, I was sitting with him at the table when they announced his name, and he didn't get up, and I was like, "You gotta get up."
Oh, you're the one. I've heard the story before, but
yeah, I'm the one.
now I can put a face to it. He goes, "Yeah, a friend of mine sitting next to me," and go, "That's you."
That's you. Yeah.
Go get your trophy.
I know, he was stunned. Which, of course you're gonna be. You're not expecting to hear your name.
Yeah, it's like it's an honor to get nominated, but of course, you want to win.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. It's like I got nominated, but then you look at like the people. Like he's told me before, he goes, I didn't think there was any way in hell I was going to win because I looked to see, the names that I was up against that year. And I was like, yeah, I was nominated. That's great.
Right.
My name's up there. And now I can say, Ringo nominated. He goes, yeah. Oh, no, it's Ringo winner.
Ringo winner. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty awesome. And that was one of the projects that he had workshopped in the classes that I took with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's always fun to do. Something that if you could flip something that you do in a class into real world experience and, in the long run get paid for it too.
Yeah.
Because classes aren't cheap.
No. I know, but gosh, I don't even remember how the heck I paid for that class. I think I was working 2 jobs at times, so that probably was part of it.
Work 2 or 3 jobs, just you sell anything you have that's worth any money.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, well, my car's almost dead. I can sell it now and just take the bus to work. And
Yep. I got this great toy here. My kid hasn't spit on too much.
Yeah, I'm finding all my daughter's like old toys, and she's like, she's yelling at me. Goes, anything you find of mine, I want in my room. I go, okay, well, that 7-foot trash bag over there is full of all your clothes from when you were 4.5 and 5. And then the 2 hampers over there, they're all clean. They were all washed and everything. I go,
right.
The 2 hampers over there are, pretty much full of the same. And she's like, well, not the clothes. I wouldn't. One of her sisters is one of the fashionistas of the family.
Ah.
So, if it doesn't cost somebody like an arm and a leg to purchase, like a sweater, it's not a brand she would wear.
Awesome.
And she's addicted to hoodies because she's at the age where she with her anxiety and everything, she wants to be the invisible woman, basically.
Right.
She doesn't want to be seen. If she sees a picture of her up on the fridge, she'll take it and throw it in the trash.
Oh.
I have to guard photos, and I had a friend of mine who's an airbrushed artist, airbrush a duplicate picture of her as a baby, like the first pictures I had taken of her, and did it on a nice canvas for my mother for
nice.
a birthday present one year. And of course, that's back here. So that's up there with like a couple other, baby things of hers. And she keeps trying to go get it. And I'm like,
no,
Pulls
her hands off, man.
I'm like grabbing my cane and like hooking her arm to pull her back like it's vaudeville or something. Why?
You're gonna have to do like what they do with the Mona Lisa and encase it in glass with like an alarm.
Oh yeah, I go, I'll tell her, I go, well, I'm gonna look through and see if I can find my old paintball gun that Uncle Dave gave me, and tweaked up so it was very illegal to shoot anybody with it.
Right.
You know.
That sounds like the gun my husband probably used when he used to do paintballing.
Well, my friend used to work for Boston Paintball years ago. He's since passed, but I bought a gun one time, and I had it like all painted up and customized the stock. Of course, it's got Punisher stuff on it, and he played with it and got the torque up, because where I was living at the time, the house on the corner, the third floor apartment, there was a door on the third floor that walked out onto the roof. They had a flat roof in the back. So all the kids would go up into that apartment and hang out on the roof, and they would make snowballs, leave them there during the day, and then late at night, like after midnight, they would go out and they would try to break people's windows.
Lovely.
with the ice balls.
Awesome.
So I used to take my paintballs and leave them in the freezer all day, and they'll load up frozen paintballs.
Yeah.
Because then there's no paint to splatter.
Yeah.
What happens is they shatter like a glass marble shot out of a cannon, and they hurt.
I was going to say that does not feel good.
Yeah. So they broke the windshield of my car once.
Yikes.
So then I'd get home from work at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I would sit in the window, all the lights off, window up, even in the wintertime.
Right.
All the wind blowing, and I'm like, oh man, it's cold. And I would just sit there in my sniper's nest, waiting for him to throw stuff. And after the third time I nailed him, they never did it again. Luckily.
Wow, it took them 3 times to get the hint. Jeez.
Well, it was multiple kids, so.
Right. But
luckily I live in Mass, where they have like there's a law that if something happens, your insurance automatically has to pay for the removal and replacement of any window on your automobile.
Oh, good. That's good.
So it's like, they charge you exorbitant rates already, so at least I got something out of the deal.
Right.
But
right.
The last thing I wanted to do was get up 2 hours after I went to bed to drive in the wintertime during a snowstorm with no windshield.
No, yeah, you don't want to be doing
to a garage and tell them, I'll give you an extra $200 if you get it done before lunch. So, but you got the first issue of this coming out in February.
So the first issue, the pre-orders are now, and then it'll hit stores April 7th.
Okay, so
it'll be a bi-monthly release for all the issues of the first arc.
Okay, so the first arc is going to take place over the course of a year.
Yeah. And then the Kickstarter for the 4th issue launches on February 2nd.
So it goes to Kickstarter first, and then it goes to second site afterwards?
Yeah, so Kickstarter is for me to pay my art team, to pay Mariana, Carlos, Layla, and Owen to do their work, and to also fund the printing and shipping that I do of the exclusive copies through Kickstarter. And then Second Sight handles the comic book store printing and shipping aspect. And
so
then we do different things with the issues to make it exclusive to the stores, so like different covers. I do a special letter to the fan for each issue that kind of gets into behind the scenes stuff that I haven't discussed before. And then there's just differences with the art. So whatever's on Kickstarter is exclusive to Kickstarter, and whatever's in the stores is exclusive to the stores.
So completists will have to buy the Kickstarter issue and the one that comes to the store. So what's the cutoff date
for preview orders?
Mm-hmm.
I believe the end of the month, but that's a good question. I don't know if my publisher told me that. I'll have to check with them.
So the code is FEB 211508. It'll be on store shelves on April 7th. But I don't see here where it gives a cutoff date.
So, I would imagine towards the middle end of the month, but I would have to check with my publisher on that.
Yeah, so this is the one that's in the previews order form currently?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so this is good up until I think right around Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Because like the 14th or 15th is of the month is usually the cutoff. I know that because every once in a while I'll get a call to can you just come and sit in your wheelchair behind the counter? I got to get the orders done. Sure.
You're fine.
Put a stack of books in front of me so I can read in between customers. Okay.
Yeah, my blast out to all the comic book stores this week in between launching the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I know. There's some stores that are like really heavy on independent creators that are big supporters of the indie community, and they'll usually work out some kind of deal with various people to to get their whatever deal you're offering to the some kind of retailer tier on the Kickstarter that you're offering, and they'll usually buy into that. I know the collective down in Florida, and they're huge on indie books, and they're getting ready. They're just about to move into a brand new, like, extremely large store, and they've got like an entire like end cap that features indie stuff, and then they've got like a wraparound like 8-foot section. Wow. And certain books, like if it's a book that they're featuring, like if it's got an exclusive cover for the store,
right,
it gets featured and goes in a display on the front counter. So
very nice.
So everybody's going to look at it and see it every time they go in and punch out. And another store I know that's big into that as part of the comic book shopping network is the owner is Jen King. That's Space Cadets out in Texas.
Okay.
I always throw those two names out because those are like the two biggest stores I know of that go out of their way to support indie creators.
That's awesome that they do. That's great. I'm so far away from a comic book store where I am. I'm at least a 30 to 40 mile drive from any comic book store. Yeah.
My friend that I do the Boomer podcast with on Thursdays, he's the same way. He has to just like pre-order. He pre-orders all this stuff from DCBS, and has to wait like a month in between. But he's got to, just like a store, he's got to pay like 3 months in advance. I go, well, dude, if you're gonna do that, and they're gonna come damaged to you anyhow because they're getting their stuff from previews,
right?
So why don't you just get a previews account?
Oh yeah. Could he do that? That would be cool.
Probably could, but I think they've tightened up because there were so many people trying to open accounts.
Right.
Just with the fact that it goes, well, yeah, I'm a convention dealer. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Oh,
so now you have to have a brick and mortar and everything else. So he goes that way, but there's so many books that come out with like pretty covers. And as much as I complain about it, I still go and buy them. I don't even collect them, and I buy them, and I'm like, why did I buy that? Oh, that cover looks so nice. It's like the only book from Marvel that I've bought in like the last 2 or 3 years has been Immortal Hulk. Al Ewing's run on Immortal Hulk.
Right.
And but the other month when Alex Ross came out with the covers that mirrored that big, huge painting of all the Marvel characters that he did at the New York Marvel office before they were going to tear everything down. Mm-hmm. So he put like all the heads on like 32 different books. And I'm like, well, there's one book out of the 32 that I collect. But then I bought them all anyhow.
I was going to say, you probably bought them all.
So, you know, I'm probably going to buy like those long frames that you can fit like 4 or 5 comics in.
Yep.
And I'm going to put like 5 in a row in, and I'm going to tack them up on the wall behind me so I have, you know, so I have a backdrop, because I just got all the rest of my stuff delivered to me that was in storage at my friend's house. So it's bad enough I live in a refurbished factory, but now it looks like I live in a warehouse because all you can see behind me are boxes.
I just see your window, actually. It looks like behind you. Unless it's not a window. It looks like a window.
That's not a window. Is it way in the corner?
Yeah, it's over.
Is it behind the lamp?
Yes, I think so. I don't know. From my angle, it looks like a window. It's probably not though.
It's not. That's actually the fuse box, and it's the light from this big 45-inch screen.
Oh, there you go.
That's just shining off it, so it looks like a window. I was like, the 2 doors behind me to the right on the screen. The one furthest to the right is actually a coat closet, and the other one is actually the door to the hallway.
Well, that's all right. I'm in my kid's bedroom at the moment because it's the only only room that has color on the wall.
I know the feeling. But either way, I want to thank you for coming out and joining us and telling us more about how the Duplicant came around. And we hope to see this on comic book shelves. But now everybody knows that they have to buy the Kickstarter and the Second Sight edition, because they're both going to be different.
They're both going to be different. Yeah.
They're both going to have exclusive covers, and they're both going to have something exclusive to the interiors of them.
Yep. That's the way to do it.
So, yeah, I know, because another creator that I got to talk to, Rich, whose series is one of the Draculas, Cult of Dracula.
Okay.
He had got picked up, I think, by Second Sight. So they started putting his stuff out, plus his Kickstarter editions.
Right.
And then another publisher that came to him with a film deal.
Oh, nice.
Offered him another deal. And so when it came to the end of the point of the contract where he had the opt out, he's like, I hope you don't take, I hope you're not mad at me, but they offered me this, and this movie company just came and they want to make a movie. They want to make a movie out of this, and
yeah, hard to turn that down.
So it's it's always good when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But everybody, please check out Karla, and you can find her on all social media at Musings by Crazed. Did that handle come across after the baby?
No, my nickname in high school was Crazed, and then I just tagged on the Musings by when I was in my 20s.
Oh, okay. It was legit either way, so.
All parents are crazed, though, especially nowadays, because we're all bouncing off the walls in our houses.
I can't talk right now. School's in session.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but I want to thank you for coming out. All the best of luck with this series.
Thank you.
And we hope to see it on all our local comic shop stores. As well as I'm sure I'll be notified when the Kickstarter comes around, so we can check out those. And when I finish charging up my pad and I can finish reading the double-sized first issue. I will feature it on one of my 5-minute reviews.
Oh, fabulous! Thank you.
So hopefully entice people to want to go out and get both copies of every issue.
Yay!
So this will be available hopefully later on tonight, unless StreamYard messed up. They decided earlier in the week that they were going to make all their audio downloads as M4As instead of MP3s because it will be faster.
Okay.
But then people that download just the audio, like myself, are using it for their podcast branding.
Right.
And you can only use MP3s.
Right.
So
I was about to say, I'm like,
hopefully they flipped everything back. And then this episode will be available on ageofradio.org. And I will, of course, drop all the, there's a Twitter link and a Facebook link and just a regular permalink that you can use everywhere. As long as they didn't mess it up again, I will drop those to you in a message a little later on tonight.
fabulous. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Everybody, read some comics.